So we've got this massive standoff happening inside the EU right now. On the surface, it looks like it's all about a damaged oil pipeline. But if you scratch the surface, things get way more complicated. We're talking about a 90 billion euro aid package for Ukraine that's just stuck. And it all leads to a bitter fight over money, power, and the future of the EU itself. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start with the immediate crisis, this energy standoff. Then we'll look at the official story, the pipeline dispute. After that, we'll peel back the layers to see the sanctions loophole that's fueling this and the real political game being played. And finally, we'll tackle the big one, that 90 billion euro question. All right, let's dive right in. What's actually happening on the ground? Well, Ukraine is fighting a war, but it's not just on one front against Russia. Turns out there's another battle, and this one's happening, believe it or not, inside the European Union. And that really brings us to the core question here, doesn't it? Why on earth would two EU nations, Hungary and Slovakia, in the middle of a brutal winter, be blocking aid that is absolutely vital for Ukraine? I mean, it just doesn't add up. And to really get what's at stake here, you have to picture the situation. Winter is biting hard. Russia is hammering Ukraine's power grid. People are facing blackouts, no heat. This whole political fight within the EU, it's not happening in a vacuum. It's making a terrible humanitarian crisis even worse. So Ukraine is getting hit from two sides at once. It's kind of like a pincer movement. First, there's the energy squeeze. Hungary and Slovakia have already cut off diesel supplies, and they're threatening to cut electricity and gas next. And then you've got the financial blockade. A massive 90 billion euro aid package is just frozen, all because of a single veto from Hungary. Okay, so what's the official story here? What's the reason they're giving for all this? Well, it all supposedly boils down to one thing, a single, very important pipeline. It's called the Druzhba pipeline, which ironically means friendship. Yeah, it's this old Soviet-era workhorse that pumps Russian crude oil right through Ukraine into Central Europe, places like Hungary and Slovakia. And the whole standoff kicked off when this pipeline got damaged during an attack inside Ukraine. And right here is where the story splits into two totally different versions. You've got Hungary and Slovakia saying, hey, Ukraine is dragging its feet on the repairs on purpose. They're using the broken pipeline as a political weapon. But then you hear from Ukraine and they're like, no way. This is just a made-up excuse for them to stay hooked on Russian oil. And this quote from a Ukrainian official, it just says it all. He says prolonging their dependence on Russian energy is like a drug addiction. You can really feel the frustration there. They don't see it as a practical choice. They see it as a dependency that needs to be broken. But here's the thing, and this is really key. This whole fight over the pipeline, it's pretty much a smokescreen. To get what's really going on, we got to pull back and look at the bigger picture. We need to talk about EU sanctions on Russia and a very, very convenient loophole. So you remember back in 2022, the EU put a ban on Russian oil coming in by ship. Big deal, right? But they left an exception, a supposedly temporary one for oil that comes through pipelines to landlocked countries. Well, this temporary loophole is now a backdoor funneling about $6 billion a year to Russia. And get this, while other countries like the Czech Republic have been trying to find new sources, Hungary and Slovakia, they've barely lifted a finger. And that brings us to the real game, the heart of the matter. Because this isn't really about a pipeline, it's about power. It's about leverage. And this strategy, it has a name. It's called soft hostage taking. And it's basically this. An EU member takes a really critical issue, like, say, aid to Ukraine, and holds it hostage with their veto power. Why? To force everyone else to give them something they want on a totally separate issue. And in this case, what does Hungary want? It wants the EU to release billions of euros that were frozen because of some pretty serious concerns about the rule of law back home. The playbook is actually pretty straightforward, and it's brutally effective. Step 1, find something really important that needs a unanimous yes vote from everyone. Step 2, threaten to veto it. Bam, you've just created a crisis. Step 3, while everyone is panicking, you make your demands, like, hey, how about you unfreeze all that money for us? Some folks at the London School of Economics put it perfectly. They called it trading vetoes for money. That's it. The whole pipeline thing, that's just the cover story for the real horse trading going on behind the scenes. And this isn't a one-off thing, not at all. If you look back, you see a clear pattern. In 2022, Hungary threatens a veto, and poof, some of its frozen funds get released.
Then in 2023, Orban backs off a veto on Ukraine's EU talks, and what do you know? A cool 10 billion euros gets unblocked. And now, here we are again, with an even bigger prize on the table.
Okay, let's talk about the money, the 90 billion euros, because this is where things get really interesting. It's not just the huge number, it's about where they're thinking of getting it from. And let me tell you, the plan is, well, it's pretty bold and controversial. Right now, the EU has control over about 210 billion euros of Russia's central bank money. It's just sitting there, frozen. And for years, everyone's been asking the same question. Can we, and should we, use this money to help Ukraine?
But where is all this money, exactly? And believe me, the answer to that question is a huge piece of this puzzle, because it's not like it's split evenly between all the EU countries.
Just look at this. Out of that 210 billion euros, an absolutely staggering 180 billion euros, almost all of it, is in one country, Belgium. Why? Well, there's this giant financial institution there called Euroclear. And this puts Belgium in a really awkward position. If they touch that money, they know Russia will sue them into oblivion. So this really leaves the EU with two paths forward. Option one is a pretty clever idea called a reparations loan. Basically, they wouldn't touch the original Russian money, just borrow against the profits it's making. Sneaky, right? Option two is more traditional. The EU just borrows the 90 billion itself. But, and this is the whole problem, doing that requires changing the EU's main budget. And for that, you need all 27 countries to say yes, which means one country, say Hungary, can bring the whole thing to a screeching halt.
So where do we go from here? We're at the endgame. Hungary has blocked the easy path. So what happens now? How does the EU get around this?
Well, it seems like there are three main possibilities. First, there's the workaround. The other 26 countries could just go around Hungary, make their own deal, and leave them out of it. Second, the standoff continues. Nothing happens, and Ukraine's funding just stays frozen. Or third, things could get ugly. The EU could retaliate, maybe by threatening to target Hungary's own economy to see if they'll finally back down.
And that leaves us with a really big question, a fundamental one. This whole mess, it's about more than just money or oil, isn't it? It's a real stress test for the entire European Union. With a major war happening right on its border, can the bloc actually act as a unified force? Or are these internal fights going to be what cracks the whole thing apart?